9/11 was orchestrated.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it's got some of the same DNA.
Oh, absolutely. That's a good way of putting it, and that pretty much says it all. It's my satisfaction I've gotten with my book is that a lot of people who initially heard about the book and said, "Oh, that theory's crazy," when they actually read the book and saw everything presented together between two covers, not what people said about it, they said, "I think you're right," and let's let the chips fall where they may. Bob, listen, I appreciate it. I've enjoyed this interchange here because it's helped me think a little bit, and I think it's helped a lot of people out there think too. So, like I say, we're going to go back into the Kennedy assassination on Tuesday night, and we'll take all the calls of those people who want to think that the chauffeur did it or the Martians. All right, Bob, thanks for your call. Thanks to those who did call, but we couldn't bring you up for time and content limitations tonight. But Tuesday night, it's open forum on the JFK assassination. Monday, we've got Salvador Astucia on the John Lennon assassination. Thanks for listening, folks. Stay tuned for more good programming on rbnlive.com. We'll see you Monday. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is Wednesday, October 11th. Just so happens to be my brother's birthday. I called him today to wish him a happy birthday, thinking that his birthday was 2 days ago, but as you know, I'm not very good with dates. I can remember lots of other things, times, places, people, events, but dates for some reason escape me. But I called my brother today to wish him happy birthday, and I called him right in the middle of his birthday party, and I said, "Well, why are you celebrating it late?" And he said, "Because it is my birthday." Today, that is. In any case, we had a distraction last night here in this show. I had to go into some unfortunate news about a very tragic event. And, I think we discussed that as much as we can discuss it. So tonight we are going to revert back to the subject that I wanted to originally discuss yesterday on Tuesday, and that was a continuation of discussion about the JFK assassination. We had discussed it 2 nights last week. I think actually maybe, in any case, we discussed it 2 nights, and I said we were going to follow up on Tuesday night. That's right. On Monday night, we discussed the death of John Lennon, and that's something we're going to follow up even further with our guest, Salvador Astucia, at some point in the very near future. But tonight we're going to go back to the JFK assassination. You're welcome to call in. We're going to restrict the calls to the subject of the JFK assassination this evening, because that's what I want to focus on, and I want those who have opinions about the JFK assassination, whether pro or con, vis-a-vis what I have expressed as far as my beliefs are concerned. And you're welcome to express your beliefs, and if I disagree, I may say so, I may not, who knows. One thing I would like to focus on, and I think this is very important, is what has been known as the French connection. The French connection to the JFK assassination. Because as my book, and I hate to quote myself, but my own book, Final Judgment, focuses on the French connection to the JFK assassination. In fact, at one point in advertising copy, we said it was the final truth about the French connection, or the final story of the French connection, or the shocking truth about the French connection. You cannot understand the JFK assassination until you understand how Israeli intelligence has been entrenched in France for years, to the point that they were able to get the French secret intelligence service to betray their own president, Charles de Gaulle. France has been an outpost of Israeli intelligence for years. It sometimes seems as though you cannot kick over a rock in France without finding Israeli intelligence at work. And I've got a whole chapter, actually several chapters in my book, Final Judgment, which first came out in 1994, several chapters touching on the French connection, and as I point out, the French connection to the JFK assassination is very much the Israeli intelligence connection. Yes, that French connection is very much a Zionist connection to the JFK affair, and I'll get into a little bit about that tonight. I'm also going to tell you a couple personal stories about how I have been surrounded over the years. And maybe not surrounded, but by people who have obvious intelligence connections, who were somehow interested in linking up with me because of my book, Final Judgment, this book on the JFK assassination. And it's been an unusual phenomenon. It's put me in some strange places, so to speak. So I'll talk a little bit about that when we come back. And like I say, if you have any calls, feel free to call in. We're going to be talking, though, about the JFK assassination. The number here is 800-313-9443. 800-313-9443, the French connection and the JFK assassination. Plus lots more. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is Michael Collins Piper returning to you from Washington, D.C. Going to be talking about the JFK assassination tonight. I do have a couple callers already, but I do want to tell you a couple interesting stories about some of my own experiences with my book, Final Judgment, and what happened after it was published. Now, needless to say, the book was and still is very, very controversial because I mentioned the possibility that Israel's intelligence service, the Mossad, may have been involved in the Kennedy assassination because President Kennedy was trying to stop Israel from building nuclear weapons of mass destruction. Well, this came as a surprise to a lot of people, but then there were other people in high places and low places and maybe no places at all who had either reached similar conclusions or had actually, in their own minds, concluded that, or I should say, believed based upon their own sources that this was indeed the case. Well, one of those people who read the book was a gentleman I had known for many years who, and I've mentioned him on this program before, he's now deceased. This gentleman had many connections, high in industry, high in some of the big foundations, people in military intelligence, people in the CIA. His own wife, I believe, worked at one point for the CIA. This guy was very, very well connected. This gentleman was also very anti-Jewish and anti-Zionist, and I draw the distinction there and say that he was both, although he never wrote publicly anything of that nature, either anti-Zionist or anti-Jewish, but very quietly and confidentially among people he trusted, he made remarks of those kind. However, as I noted on this program before, there were times over the years where he outlined his own activities to me, doing a variety of high-level jobs, shall we say, behind the scenes for his friends in the military and in the intelligence community. And in about 5 or 6 of these instances, it became apparent to me that this gentleman, although he was very anti-Jewish and very anti-Zionist, was in fact carrying out operations for these groups that we know of today as the neoconservatives, that is, people with associations with Israel's intelligence service, the Mossad. And it always struck me in my own mind that this friend of mine, and he was a friend of mine, was actually working for the Mossad in some of these instances and didn't even know it. Well, he was an older gentleman, and I was not ever about to say to him, hey, so-and-so, don't you think you're working for the Mossad? Because I think, you know, when someone is enmeshed in such an operation like that, and probably he was primarily concerned with what he took to be the anti-communist elements of his enterprises. I don't think he realized that he was ultimately working for the Mossad. But be that as it may, that's the gentleman in question. Well, about 2 years after my book came out, this gentleman, who actually had several published books to his name, several of which were fairly well known, called me and told me that he wanted to have lunch with me, and he wanted to discuss a very confidential matter. Well, I was certainly intrigued. Anytime someone wants to tell you they want to discuss something very controversial over lunch, you want to know what it's about. These days I say, just tell me over the phone. Those days I was just enough intrigued and naive enough to say, okay, let's do lunch. In any case, we sat down to have lunch, and he started off and told some very interesting stories about a lot of things. We talked for about a half an hour, and then he finally said to me, "Are you going to be reprinting a new edition of your book, Final Judgment?" And I said, "Well, I hope so. I hope there's enough interest in it." And at that juncture, he said, "Well, this is what I wanted to talk to you about. I was thinking that maybe I could join you as the co-author of the book." Well, if any of you have ever out there written a book or put your name on an article that's already been published, believe me, you understand what I'm saying. It's a real surprise when somebody wants to tell you that they want to suddenly become co-author on a book that you've already written. And he went on to give kind of a lame explanation as to his thought that maybe with his name attached to the book, it would give future editions of the book more credibility. But folks, I want to tell you what my reaction to it was. I was thinking, oh my God, my friend is on assignment here. He has been told to attach himself to little old me, Michael Collins Piper, and maybe somehow get control of Final Judgment, the book. Somehow take things out of the book that someone somewhere doesn't like. It might not have even been the Mossad. It may have been somebody in the CIA who didn't like certain things in my book, or I didn't know, but I knew, folks, that something weird was happening. Well, I didn't say yes and I didn't say no, and our luncheon continued for about an hour and a half, and I said, well, I'll get back to you on it. I never got back to him on it, and he never mentioned it again. Well, subsequent to that luncheon, I had occasion to talk to another friend of mine who was very former high-ranking CIA official, Victor Marchetti, and I'm not letting out any secrets. Victor's been a major critic of the Zionist lobby, has been a major target of the Zionist lobby. And I told Victor about my experience with this other gentleman, and Victor started laughing. This guy, Victor Marchetti, was like a former, probably third or fourth ranking level in the CIA, deputy assistant to the deputy director, I think his title was. In any case, Victor knew all the players, author of the CIA and Cult of Intelligence. And his reaction was, somebody somewhere wants to grab control of your book. He said it may be the Mossad, it may be somebody else, but they were using this guy. And he probably didn't even know it himself. He said, they dangled it, they dangled the carrot in front of you, and you didn't bite. Well, folks, it was that incident that led me to believe that maybe my book might have something in it somewhere of real value. At least, let's put it this way, I knew that it already did. But at that point then, I began to realize that there were people in high places who were looking at the book, who realized that there were many people who were starting to read my book and take it seriously. And for that reason, they determined that they needed somehow to try to influence future editions of the book. Well, as it so happens, they didn't. I never brought this up to my friend who is since deceased, and like I say, I truly believe that, as Victor Marchetti said, they were dangling, they were trying to grab me, they may have offered me a pile of money or something, and then suddenly I would have no